Welcome back to the Luxury Rental Doctor podcast. I'm Dr. Rachel Gainsborough, your host, and today's episode is going to be a game changer for anyone who is looking to get started on their real estate investing journey. Joining us today is the amazing Emir, founder of Rabu, which is a company that's really helping to revolutionize how we access short-term rentals that are on the market, how we analyze properties that are out there as well, and breaking news, and we're going to talk about it also where we can list our short-term rentals. So I'm really excited about that. So for my medical professionals and high-income earners who have been sitting on the sidelines just completely worried about taking the first step into real estate investing, I want you to know that the data doesn't lie. We need to check on the numbers first. And so this episode is specifically for you. Emir is going to be sharing some insider strategies, market analysis, and how we can mitigate risk from the get-go. Emir, welcome to the show, my friend.
Dr. Rachel, so glad to be back on. It's been a while since we reconnected, but I'm happy to be back. Love what you've built, and I can't say this enough. I really appreciate your community too. My wife is a nurse. We have a lot of friends that are in the medical field. I tell my wife every time she tells me about what she did at work that day, I'm not worthy. What you guys go through and the stress and the work that you guys do is unbelievable. So appreciative of your community and the skills that you guys have. So happy to be here. Happy to be speaking to you guys, and hopefully I can provide a little bit of insights that will make your lives easier and kind of help you through this short-term rental investment journey. But again, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, thank you, Amir. So, Amir, a lot of our listeners are burdened by significant taxes. They're wanting to figure out a way to get into some type of real estate strategy that will relieve those taxes. And inside of our community and our faculty, we have found that short-term rentals are definitely the way to go. But my question to you, though, Amir, is Airbnb dead?
No, and I'm extremely bullish on Airbnb and short-term rentals. So I think that's a simple answer, no. Any kind of hype that you see online about Airbnb bust and things of that nature, don't buy into it. Really what's happening with the asset class, and this is my view on it, and I think a lot of other professionals in the data space who have been following data as we have will likely agree, is that the asset class is kind of going through a professionalization stage. It's becoming more professional. Kind of think about it this way, like pre-COVID, it was like this 10-year-old kid, right? Kind of growing up and excited. Everybody loved it. Then COVID happened and hit puberty, right? Like it just kind of went through a storm of like supply and demand. A lot of supply dropped off when COVID first hit. People started traveling again. Everybody wanted to kind of stay in a short-term rental because of social distancing. And as the returns started to look great because the supply was far outpaced by the demand, supply started catching up. And things are now finally starting to normalize where supply growth and demand growth are kind of stabilized. They're one and the same or very close to one and the same. So what we're seeing now is that this little young kid that we have that was 10 years old pre-COVID is now maturing into an adult, is becoming a professional. And as such, we just need to realize how to interact with that professional, right? You don't treat it like you treated him when he was 10 years old and you can get away with anything, right? Now you need to realize that for me to have that connection with this more adult individual, Airbnb in this instance, you need to be a professional about it and the way you approach it. So that's kind of the way I think about it. It's an Airbnb, and the industry as itself has grown, has become an adult now. It's more professional, and that's how you need to treat it. And if you do, it'll treat you well. It'll provide you the type of returns, economic returns, and economic freedom that you're looking for.
So I love that you just explained that as far as the growth curve of Airbnb, that analogy of it being a child, probably started as a baby, then a toddler, and it's heading into its adolescence. Because here's what we know. 90% of millionaires are made through real estate investing. And I have found personally for my portfolio and the ability to back away from the W-2 and leave it behind altogether came from the ability to real estate, specifically in short-term rentals. We found a lot more cash flow in short-term rentals in a shorter period of time compared to any of the other asset classes. So what you're saying to me though, although 90% of millionaires are made through real estate investing. Airbnbs potentially has that significant cash flow potential, and I believe there's 7 million plus credit cards on file with Airbnb, where people could just one click book a property and show up the next day. So if we're looking to really get into real estate investing and make a dent and really see some cash flow, having an Airbnb, considering Airbnb as one of our pillars, is very important. But what you just emphasized to us, Amir, is like we can't just throw any furniture into the property. We can't just throw it together and expect the same result as someone who is taking it seriously, who is professionalizing it. Is that what you're saying?
100%. And it's again like there's a different way that you treat your kid when it's 2 years old, 4 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old. The way you interact with it is different. The things you can get away with on a parenting side are different if you want to earn their respect and keep that relationship going. So in the early days of Airbnb, you really could go a lot of times you could go rent out a place and turn it into an Airbnb. You could make money that way. That no longer works, the Airbnb arbitrage piece. But you could also buy a home and put IKEA furniture in there, kind of do the very basics. And when the supply was low and the demand outpaced the supply, you could still make good money. But now that those are kind of on an even pole, after supply was outpacing demand for a while, we're at that point where if you really want to be successful in what you do, you need to invest the time and effort into making sure that your Airbnb is something that is appealing and is going to create memories for the guests that are staying there. So you really kind of want to paint that picture of, you don't want them just to be comfortable, you want them to feel like they're creating an experience and have an experience there. Now, that can be accomplished in many ways, through furniture, through design aspects, through amenities. I mean, there's countless things you can do. But the point being is that you can treat it like like a 5-year-old kid, where you can get away with feeding it mac and cheese every day. Sometimes you need to think through, taking them to, Ruth's Chris or somewhere, right, for a nice steak. So that's really kind of the analogy there.
I love it. I love it. And it didn't escape me when you said throw some IKEA furniture in there as well, because I know some of our listeners may be considering that and guilty of that. So let's just really be mindful. But I do want us to start from the get-go, from the beginning. So let's talk about market analysis. Amir, what are the 3 non-negotiable metrics that every investor must examine before purchasing their first property?
Yeah, I mean, the first place I always start is take put any data aside. Where do you, as a traveler, love to go? Like, if you're a beach person and you love going to Savannah or like Tybee Island outside of Savannah, then focus on that market, because that's what you know, that's what you love, and that's the experience that you can best create. If you love going to the beach, but then you decide for your first place to be somewhere in the mountains, so you're not a skier or whatever, right? You can set that property up for success. It's just not going to work long term. Might work short term, but it's not going to work long term. So you really initially have to have conviction in the market yourself as a traveler, because that correlates really well to what you're hoping to accomplish, right? Because you make that connection to it. You know what you would want to experience when you're there traveling by yourself with your family. So you want to create that experience for somebody else. So always start there. Is like, what places do you care about, and try to create an experience that you want to have there in that market. Because a lot of times, if you care for it, other people will care for it too. So that's number one for me. Always has been number one. Number two is kind of realizing what type of investor you want to be. And what I mean by that is, do you want to be an investor that's playing more of the cash flow game, as in, hey, I'm looking to make a X% return on a recurring basis every year or every month on my investment? So are you looking for cash flow on a continuous monthly, annual basis, or are you okay with breaking even and then kind of playing the appreciation game, as in, you're not, the property is covering for itself for 2 to 3 years or 5 years, whatever the case may be, but based on some data that you'd much rather want to see the returns when you sell 5 years from now, and you believe this market's going to appreciate whatever 5-10% every year, and you're playing kind of the appreciation game. So that's, ideally, of course, everybody would love both, but you're going to need to pick a direction, right? You want to be more of a cash flow investor or more of an appreciation based investor. And there's no right answer or perfect answer. It depends on the individual. We've seen both work, but that's key in kind of deciding what you do, because that's going to drive a lot of your decisions in the type of property you acquire. So that's the second data point, is kind of, again, having that internal conversation or conversation with your partner or whomever, is what are my financial goals? Are they long-term or short-term from this asset? Ideally, of course, it's a blend, but I think you kind of need to establish one way or the other, what works best, what you're looking for personally. And then three, the biggest thing we then look for is, like, when evaluating a market, to, like, regardless of what type of investor you are, whether you're a cash flow investor or appreciation investor, is to see if that market's gross yield on average. So gross yield meaning the average money that market makes, an average property that market makes, if that's at least 10% of the average household cost, or the average house value in that market. So, for example, you're looking in Savannah, I'm just making this up, the average house costs $800,000 in Savannah. Does the average property make $80,000 as an Airbnb? So, 80,000 is 10% of 800,000. That's kind of a good starting point. If you're seeing 10% or higher, then either strategy is likely going to work in that market. Obviously, the higher the better, but kind of looking at that gross yield number, it's like the initial litmus test to see if a market is suitable for short-term rentals. Is a great starting point. And a lot of times you'll find, like, I'm in Charlotte right now, our gross yield is probably 6 to 7% right now based on this market. So this is not a good short-term rental market today, because it's just a better market for, residential buyers. People are going to use and live in these homes. So, and that's okay. That wasn't the case 3 or 4 years ago, but that the market has changed. So those are kind of the questions I like to ask myself when I'm evaluating a market.
I love that. And I love the fact that you've painted the picture for us of that initial litmus test. Okay. So, first and foremost, you mentioned number one, have a connection with that market, whether it's a market we've visited before and we've truly enjoyed. That's going to be really important in terms of the non-negotiables. And I couldn't agree with you more. I have so many people asking me about opportunities and deals all the way in Ohio. I was like, well, have you been to Ohio before? I have not been to Ohio before. And so they get enticed and seduced by those numbers. So yes, a place that you are connected to, somewhere you would want to visit. Number two, determine your investor type, cash flow versus appreciation. I love that. So pick a direction. I'm greedy. I want everything, but yes, you're absolutely right. Let's pick a direction and head in that direction. And number three, that gross yield of 10%. I love that. And I think it's really important to go in with our eyes wide open and not create a story or a narrative for ourselves and think that, we can really change it up if the entire market as a whole is generating 3 or 4%. Well, if you can find a subset of 10 comps that are generating more than that, then there's potential. But nevertheless, I think that that's really, really important. So my question to you, Amir, is like, how do we find this information out? Does Rabu help inform us on some of these bits of information?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like that you asked that question. Obviously, the first two are more subjective to each individual, right? The one other thing I would say is, if you're considering a market and you haven't been yet, go spend a few days there, stay at another Airbnb there and evaluate it and see how that feels. And then look at its revenue, and you can look that revenue up on Rabu.com to see how much that property is making, to kind of get an idea of what it feels like. So I'm not saying don't buy in a market that you don't have an emotional attachment with. Well, I am saying that, but if it's a new market for you, go create that emotional attachment first. If you can't create it, then it's unlikely going to work out. We did some of that same stuff. Our second Airbnb was in Savannah, for what it's worth, and the only reason we ended up there is because we were supposed to go to my wife and I were supposed to go to Barcelona, And we got to the airport here in town, and they scanned my passport and they realized that my passport expired in like 2 months and 28 days. Well, the rule was in Spain is that they wouldn't let you into the country if your passport expires in less than 3 months. And I didn't realize that. So we were at that kind of crossroads. There's a decent chance they would let us go to Spain and still get in, but there's no guarantee. So my wife and I kind of made the call. Okay, well, this is what it is. Let's go somewhere else where we wanted to go. Savannah is 4 hours from Charlotte, which is where we're based. So we went to Savannah and fell in love with Savannah and got our second Airbnb in Savannah, right on Broad Street. And it turned out great. But that was kind of another way of like we created an emotional attachment through an accidental situation. But that's what I'm saying is don't buy somewhere unless you can create that emotional attachment. We fell in love with Savannah. We fell in love with the location, and we pulled the move. So yeah, that's just a little bit more context on number one. With regards to that gross yield piece, we have multiple tools on Rabu that will help you do that. My favorite tool is probably our least underutilized, like a most underutilized tool on Rabu.com is what we're calling Market Finder. And what it does exactly kind of what I just described, is it looks at all existing markets in the US that have an Airbnb. It tells us which markets have the most Airbnbs. Then it looks at the average revenue that that market makes. And then it takes the ZHVI, which is the Zillow Home Value Index. It's a number published and updated every month by Zillow, where they tell you what the average value of a home is in a market based on most recent sales. So based on that, we kind of give you that exact breakdown, that gross yield breakdown. Will tell you, hey, here's all the markets, and you can search by state or by the entire country, and then we'll tell you, hey, the average revenue in this market is 80K, the average home price value per ZHVI is 650,000, so your gross yield is 12 whatever percent, right? And then we give you links to go actually see properties there and explore the markets more. So we have that tool. It's on Rabu.com. It's called a Market Finder. Couldn't recommend it more. So if you go to Rabu.com, there's a data and tools section in the top right. If you go to top Airbnb markets, that's where you'll find that. Again, incredibly powerful tool. Would recommend it, and it's free to use. So
I just want to jump in real quick and spell it out for everyone. That's RAB as in boy, B as in boy, U.com, Rabu. Just to make sure for those who are new to the platform, they're fully aware of how to get there. So proceed. I just jotted down Market Finder. I don't think I've actually used that. So I'm going to be sharing that in an email to the whole community. Guys, hey, take a look at this Market Finder. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love that tool. You can really, the way it works is it gives you all the cities with more than 10 Airbnbs basically in a country. So like I'm looking at it right now, the city with the most Airbnbs in the United States, not surprisingly, because Kissimmee, Florida.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like 40,000 probably, right? At this point.
well, it's up there. Yeah, I mean it's growing on a consistent basis. But yeah, the average home value in Kissimmee, I always get that wrong. So Kissimmee or Kissimmee, I guess I don't know, depending who you ask. But the average home value in Kissimmee is 495,000. The average annual revenue in Kissimmee is 49,488. So it's literally right at 10% gross yield. So that one is right at like the the bottom of where you'd want to look.
Okay.
Right, like it's
There
right
it is
at
right
10,
there.
which makes sense,
So
right? There's a
you have
lot of
Kissimmee is
supply in
listed
Kissimmee,
right here.
but there's
It's
also
got
a
that
good amount of
gross
demand because
yield
of
of
Disney and
10%.
Orlando
It's
and
got
all
an
that fun stuff.
occupancy rate
So
of
it's still you can
48%.
still
So
make the
this
numbers
is
work, but
great.
like the next property
I
down for
love
us is
this. So
Miami,
this
right? And
answers
the
the question,
average
guys.
home
For those
value
of
is
you
in
who keep
Miami at
asking the question,
925. The
where should
average
I
revenue is
invest? Well,
54,000, so
get
you're
the
looking at
wheels turning. Get
5.96%.
familiar with the
An incredibly
numbers. The
hard market to
data
find a
does
property
not
because of
lie.
that. So
And the
like
gross
those are the
yield,
type
you
of
can see some
data
that
points
are
that we
the
provide
top
through the tool
performers,
that kind of
aka the
serve as a
winners,
great
and
like
some that
first
are
measure of
clearly
like
the
where should I be
losers
looking.
that may not be a good place. And LA, poor LA, we're at 3.3% gross yield. Poor LA for a number of reasons, right? Goodness gracious. It is tough out there on these streets. So, all right, I'm going to head back to no more screen sharing, but I thought it was just so important to give that extra gem. I'm going to be living here. I'm about to cancel all of my meetings for the rest of the day so that I can play with this. Just kidding, but I'm such a data nerd. I go into spreadsheets, I live in spreadsheets, and just to have it presented in this way, Amir, I'm so appreciative of that. So
Of
thank
course.
you for this platform. Thank you for putting this together. And I can't believe it's free. How is this even free?
I mean, we thought about it. We at one point did charge for it, and it became apparent to us is that as part of, I mentioned this industry is becoming professionalized. As part of becoming professionalized, it needs to have tools available to itself that are free so that it can educate and grow and learn. Nothing against any other data tools out there. They're great. Um, but they're all behind a paywall, right? And that just didn't feel like the right move for the space. So we felt like our opportunity in this space was to make this data, which is very similar and it's sourced the same way the other groups source it, um, make it available to people. And we monetize in different ways. We monetize the same way that Zillow monetizes their traffic is basically if you use our site and you want to talk to an agent or a lender, we have those agent lender relationships and they pay us for leads, best way to think about it. But that's secondary in our minds because the education, the data, and the awareness, I think, is just uplifting for the industry and it's much needed. So we're very much kind of thinkers of let's build up the industry together and we'll all succeed along the way. So that's, I think, if we do that right, if we play our part, we will be just fine as a company. So that's our play.
I love that. So if we're looking beyond at 2025, we've now crossed over 2025 and beyond. What would you say are the emerging opportunities or emerging markets new investors need to be positioning themselves for?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna see a lot of interest in markets that are like adjacent to traditional vacation markets.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is like, Asheville, North Carolina, which obviously unfortunately I've had another, it's another market that had some mother nature,
Yeah.
issues over the last 6 months. But love that market. The city itself, and I've Airbnbs myself in that market. The city itself is very tight on regulations, which is fine. But I get completely. I think some regulations are fine. But like all the outlying areas that are adjacent to Asheville, for example, are prime for opportunity because people want to still be close to Asheville, want to have that experience. The city might no longer allow it or might be less affordable in the city itself or the returns might make less in the city itself, but the markets and the areas right adjacent to it, I think is where we'll see the best ROI in 2025 and beyond. So that is a great market around Asheville. The market that keeps popping up is the Poconos and the Poconos area in general.
Okay.
We're seeing some of the highest interest and best returns in around the Poconos. Um, so that's a really interesting market area itself. Also, the Texas coast, kind of the Texas like Galveston and around the coast there.
Right.
Real estate there is still relatively affordable. Interest is still high, so I really like that kind of Texas coast market as well. So those are kind of the three that are top of mind. But it's really anything kind of adjacent to traditional vacation markets or traditional event markets, resort markets that I think are the best opportunity for upside.
I love it. I love it. So, what would you say the reason for that is? Is it because the market that is already established, they have a draw, but then folks are open and willing to go a little bit further out? Paint that picture for me.
Yeah, it's a combination of things. It's the markets already have a draw
Yeah.
associated with it. As such, a lot of the real estate within those markets has appreciated considerably.
Mm.
So the return opportunities have kind of compressed, right? There's less money to be made because the real estate is appreciated, not because revenue is less. It's just it costs more to buy there. And I think the adjacent markets to them can still create a very similar experience to what the primary markets can produce and give you as the investor the opportunity to add amenities and the experience that you couldn't within the city because of the costs associated with it. So I think we're going to start seeing some people kind of be drawn out of the city center to larger homes on the outskirts of the city and still have the ability to get to the city or to the resort or wherever in short order, but have a better home base, a more comfortable home base, a more experience based home base to kind of be stationed in. So I think that's kind of, it's a combination of, demand for those markets still rising, but because of appreciation, the returns are compressed, and the outlying markets, the markets, the adjacent markets, just have more upside from both from an ROI perspective, really.
I love that. I love that. And as far as the tool, I know I've used Data Rabu. We've known each other for such a long time, Amir. I know I've used Data Rabu for such a long time, and it is one of the tools that I use to benchmark. What is the difference between my subject property and a property that's already performing in a particular market? So, my question to you is, as we toggle on and off things like amenities, what is your perception? What are you seeing as the top amenities? Are they market specific? Could you speak to that a little bit and paint us that picture?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say there's no doubt that they're market specific.
Yeah.
Some things translate well, like a hot tub works well anywhere, but a lot of different amenities are really market specific. And the amenities can range from parking, where we've seen some markets where parking makes the biggest delta in the return, to have pools. Like some places, pools are just, they're not an amenity, they're a must, right? Like anywhere in
Non-negotiable.
yeah, they're non-negotiable. If you don't have a pool in Florida, you might as well not even try, right? So it really varies by market. And we've tried to make our tools, our market data tool, which is another tool that we use. We'll tell you what amenities have the best ROI for each market. So, some markets you'll see the best ROI is parking, because there's just not enough properties that provide parking. Others, it's pets. We've seen markets where actually allowing pets actually makes you less money, because people don't want to deal with pets or pet hair or pet issues when they're traveling and want to stay at a property that might have had pets before. So it really is market specific. Again, some translate everywhere. Like, you're not going to, hot tubs are like the one that come to mind. Like, if you have a hot tub, that's going to do well whether you're in in a city or city center, or if you're in a beach or in a mountain resort, right? But everything else is really kind of dependent on the market. Now, the one thing I will say is that the thing that always matters the most is the hospitality that you provide as a host, right? You can have all the amenities in the world, but if they're not well kept, if they're too difficult to use, if they're broken down, or if there's any kind of issues with them, if your hospitality is not aligned, then the amenities won't matter, right? Because people are like, hey, yeah, it's got a pool, but it's dirty, right? Or yes, there's a great pool and a great view, but I walked in and there's trash everywhere, or like the sheets had stains, all that stuff. That kind of basic kind of hospitality, communication, cleaning, maintenance is just as important, if not more important, than the amenities. The amenities kind of take it to the next level, but if you don't do the basics well, it's just, yeah, it just won't work.
100%. And I want to stress that everything is figure outable, guys. There are tools, there are standard operating procedures, there are playbooks that we share inside of our community to make sure that you're up to par and you have your systems built out, because systems are sexy when it comes to short-term rentals. You don't have to sacrifice your hard-earned precious time trying to balance it all. So I absolutely love that. So it's time, Amir, for our rapid fire questions. Are you ready, my friend?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So can you share a moment when you felt completely burnt out and how you overcame it?
Oh man, I mean, I'll be lying if I said those didn't happen often, right? I mean, I think it's just the nature
Being a business
of the
owner.
world. A business owner, being a parent of three young kids,
Yeah.
it's tough, right? I'm big into positive self-talk, so that always helps. And I'm also big in setting goals and painting a timeline and taking steps. So that's always been my go-to, no matter what the situation was. Is like, this is the current setup, or these are the current circumstances. How do I get beyond them and never feel sorry for myself, because that only makes things worse. Is
Yeah.
this is the current situation that I'm in. This is where I want to be. I'm clear I want to be here. I'm not 100% clear how I'm going to get from here to there. But the thing that I will do is commit to taking baby steps to get there. And as you start taking baby steps and kind of start feeling that progress, that cloudiness lifts, and you start seeing through the burnout, right? And you really things become much clearer. So it's taking action, but it's taking small steps, and positive self-talk is really kind of what does it. I've seen people, and everyone's different. I've seen people just needing to step away for a little bit. Completely get it. Go on a solo like trip somewhere. I've seen people just want to travel. I think to each their own, but for me, it's been accept the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
Don't fret about it. Don't feel bad about it. Say where you want to go, and then create an actionable plan to get there. That's always worked well for me.
Love that. What is a tool or a book or a resource that you're loving right now that's completely changing your perspective on work or life?
Yeah, I mean, the easy kind of go-tos are always like ChatGPT and the AI tools. They're just amazing. So I'm not going to go easy. We, as a company, especially in the executive team, had a executive coach for a while, and she told us this method called the A plus method, and we do it all the time when we get stuck with a problem. And the way the method works, it's really interesting. It's usually a meeting with you and whoever's involved in it, and the first thing you do is you write out the problem statement. You try to keep it really short and simple, right? Like I'm just trying to think about it. I need to raise my nightly rate by $30 every month or every day, right? Let's just say that's my problem statement, right? So that's the problem statement. That's the thing that we're solving for. So from there, the next question is, okay, what do we have to accept? Like, what are circumstances that are happening that are beyond our control that we have to accept as happening, right? And it can be like, hey, it's low seasonality time in in Savannah, right? Because it's the winter and people aren't going to Savannah. It's like you just write down all the things that are outside of your control that you have to accept, and then the next thing you do is called aware, which is like you list your feelings around the situation, right? So it just allows you to kind of like be vulnerable, right? Like, hey, this is why this sucks, and this is how I'm feeling emotionally, and it's just like a big relief to just be able to say, hey, I'm scared because if I don't get this up another $30 per day, I might have to sell the property or whatever the case may be, right? Kind of being pretty open and vulnerable on like how you're feeling. And then the next thing is just like it's called adapt. That's the next step, and that's where you start listing baby steps that you can take to kind of combat the problem, right? So for like, hey, I'm going to raise my nightly rate by $30. You could say, hey, I'm going to look into dynamic pricing software like Beyond Pricing, Wheelhouse, or wherever. So that's one of the to-dos. Then you like think through like 5 other things that you can do. They can say, hey, I'm going to actually raise my weekend rates by $100 and lower my weekday rates by $10, and hopefully that'll balance out. So you just like start putting things down, and then the last one is assure, where you commit to doing 1 or 2 of those things, and then you commit to coming back in 2 weeks or some certain time period to like revisit the topic. And we've seen that method like solve the biggest problems by being aware and accepting of the circumstances that you're in, and then committing to baby steps. And a lot of times the baby steps just get you there, or like get you 90% of the way there, where wherever angst that you had about it prior just like dissipates because it's not this big behemoth problem that you thought it was. So that A plus method, incredibly powerful. Highly recommend anybody check it out online. Just like the plus sign method. If you Google search for it, you'll find some stuff on it. Highly recommend it.
Ooh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I've got a couple things that I need to clear off of my desk that I've been dragging my feet on, so I'll definitely try that out this week.
It helps. It's surprising
Yeah,
how well it works.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you. What's the craziest real estate story you've heard or experienced?
I mean, as a short-term rental host, we used to have over 400 properties that we managed, so we've seen it all. Absolutely seen it all. We've had people literally bring their emotional support pigs and stay at some of our properties, and literally turn into a pigsty. Like, I mean, I kid you not. Like, there's no cleaning fee that we could have charged to kind of get rid of that smell. But it is what it is. The craziest, absolutely craziest story that we had, this is, it's an extreme, is also circumstantial,
Give
but
it
the
to us.
craziest story is we used to manage a hotel or hotel Airbnb building in Miami Beach.
Oh, wow.
So not quite South Beach, but a little bit like, up. It's still on like Collins Avenue, which is the
Yeah.
primary kind of street, but not quite South Beach,
Yeah.
but close enough. A mile from South Beach. And one night or one day during the day, and this was in like June or July of like 2021, maybe 2021, 2022. It was a hot day. The AC went out in the hotel, which, Miami, June, July, you're looking at 95-degree weather, just crazy hot. So the best thing we could do is we ran to Home Depot and bought a bunch of window units to put into the property, into the rooms to keep them cool, to keep the guests comfortable. Because
How
as
many
a host,
rooms, by the way?
52,
Got
yeah,
it.
yeah. So we go do that. As a host, you kind of have to be ready to do whatever it takes to make sure the guests are happy, right? So
Yeah.
we go do that, and we pile the boxes on the side of the building, and don't think much of it because we solved the problem, and sometimes that's all you can do, right? Is you solve the problem. Um, and we had the woman that ran the hotel live next door to the hotel, and it being 1 a.m. in the morning, and she hears a big thump. She looks out the window of the building next door where she was staying at, and sees a bunch of people crowding around our hotel. Turns out somebody got drunk, jumped out of the 7-story window, and not sure how, but out of all the places where she could have jumped, she jumped and fell on those boxes that we had laid there from the AC units, and that saved her life because she landed on those boxes.
Oh
So
my God.
talk about like serendipity and just like the craziest experience ever.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah. So
That is
that's
nuts. No,
that
we've
is
never had that story on this show for sure. My goodness, Amir. Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Such a valuable conversation overall. Any final words for the people before we wrap, my friend?
yeah. I mean, again, really appreciate what you guys do for your profession. I think a lot of that is translatable into the short-term rental world.
Yeah.
Build the systems, build the processes. We know hospitals, run the way they run because of those. If you translate some of that same skill set into the hospitality world, I think you'll be perfectly fine. Of course, leverage Rabu and leverage Dr. Rachel in helping you identify the right properties and the right strategies. But implementing that kind of the processes, the SOPs, the step-by-step kind of to-dos on the management side will make and break your experience. So there's good money to be made. Short-term rentals will never be truly passive, so I wouldn't want to paint a false picture, but they can be highly rewarding. We've seen a lot of our clients that we've worked with make generational wealth off just a few properties. So the opportunity is there, but it requires work, and I think the skill set that your audience has is really well translatable into creating something special. So leverage the tools and Dr. Rachel to the best of your abilities, and you'll be fine.
Oh, thank you, Amir. Thank you so much. Amir, how can the people find you? What's the best way to connect with the resources that Data Rabu has to offer?
Yeah, I mean, they're all free to use at rabu.com. So rabbu.com. Check out our tools. We have those market data tools that Dr. Rachel showed you. We also have our own kind of proprietary supply. So people are now posting their properties for sale on Rabu before they even hit the MLS. So we have a proprietary supply that you won't find anywhere else. And it's all free to use. So highly encourage you to check out rabu.com. If you want to, interact with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, just Emir Dukic, or on Twitter X, just twitter.com or x.com/my name, Emir Dukic. So love to interact with anybody there. If you guys have any questions, feel free to send them my way.
Awesome. I love it. And we'll add all of those links and those social media handles on the show notes below. Emir, thank you so much for your work with Data Rabu. I so appreciate how you're making it easy and stress-free for investors who are looking to get into the short-term rental game. So again, guys, to connect, go to rabu.com. That's RABBU.com. And I interact with Emir all the time on LinkedIn, of all places, as well as on Twitter X. And so, yeah, that's me. That's all we've got for today, guys. Dr. Rachel signing out. Remember that real estate investing does not have to be overwhelming when you have the right tools, the right strategies. And this is again Dr. Rachel. See you next time on the Luxury Rental Doctor Show. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you, everyone.